Why am I addicted to the narcissist? A relationship with a narcissist is the equivalent of being on Class A drugs. The chemical reactions in the brain and the endorphins released are the same when we are trauma bonded. The tactics used by a narcissist naturally are the same tactics used by Nazis and oppressors alike. A breakup with a narcissist does not reflect a normal relationship breakup. We need weaning off, and often have a relapse before truly walking away. I believe it is in fact more common for the narcissist to discard their spouses once they are all used up. Being addicted to the narcissist releases the same endorphins as drug and gambling addiction. The addict is always seeking the same high from their original and first experience. They say crack cocaine is the most addictive drug, because you are forever chasing the first high you experienced, and that you will never experience again. This pattern of getting a little of what you require creates a reward system in your brain. It's to receive pleasure and dopamine. Over time, this engagement floods your reward system in your brain. Your brain adapts to the current doses and requires more. You experience a state of tolerance from your dosage, and need more and more of the drug to experience the same pleasure. You tolerate more bad treatment from the narcissist, to receive a drop of their affection and love again. This explains the behavior you see in long-term addiction, which affects decision-making, judgment and memory, all leading to physical changes in the brain. The addict becomes driven by habit more than conscious thinking and reflection. The addict, like the victim of a narcissist, becomes more and more addicted and seeks out their drug validation from the narcissist, no matter the cost. The brain becomes hijacked. It goes without saying that narcissists are attracted to specific types of people. Where the narcissist sits on the spectrum will determine the types of people they endorse for narcissistic fuel. What makes victims drawn to narcissistic people will be determined by genetics, environment and development. People with narcissistic parents or upbringing are the most common fuel for narcissist, as the environment feels like home for their victim. The style of trauma bonds amongst the range of narcissistic relationships will vary, but it is the same mix of behaviors from any narcissist that will cause these trauma bonds. It is the give and take aspect of the relationship that forms the victim's yearning and seeking validation that forms into an addiction. The victim's boundaries and fears will inform the narcissist what is needed to create a false sense of security at the start of the relationship. During love bombing, the narcissist will spend time with you regularly, call often, nice dates, and whatever they believe to be your standards to convince you they are a good person. The time invested in love bombing will be determined by what the narcissist believes is needed to secure a false sense of security. Once this has been achieved, their narcissistic supply reduces, and your happiness is now unattractive, unrelatable, and needs to be shut down by the narcissist, also they can feel secure and maintain their narcissistic supply. The narcissist now needs to remove your sense of security by devaluing you. How they do this depends on where the narcissist sits on the spectrum. It could be subliminal comments about your appearance and choices, or becoming overt and physical with you. If the narcissist was successful during the love bombing phase, the victim will struggle to make the connection between the masked persona and the devil they now witness. If this boundary is crossed and accepted, it is the key to forming the trauma bonds. After devaluing, they discard the victim for something they did not do, but must take the blame. At this stage, if the victim fails to work out they've been manipulated, and accepts feeling confused and forgives the narcissist, narcissistic supply is now heightened, and hoovering begins. The victim during hoovering will only receive a portion of the original love bombing phase to kickstart the addiction. If the victim has not walked away before this point, The narcissist knows they are now living in hope and faith for the mask they met to return, that never will again. Anything good you receive is now temporary, but what is now long-term is the cycle of abuse that keeps you coming back for more. I was in a relationship with the father of my 2 sons for 10 years. During the first 9 months of our relationship, things were phenomenal. We went out every day, and we partied from Thursday to Sunday for 6 months straight, whilst I was on a break after university. We moved in together quickly, and he constantly gave me money. I have never been materialistic, but he must have been convinced this was the best way to secure my love, as he didn't stop giving me money. We went to expensive restaurants, we drove all over the UK, went to festivals and carnivals. He brought me gifts constantly and it was all so fun. 9 months later he created a huge argument with me that I cannot remember what over now, only that I blamed myself, and then he dumped me. I was hoovered back up soon after. I also remember him triangulating me with his female friends. Not long after that argument, he slapped me very hard across the face while I was driving, for going to the pub with a male work colleague. I always said I would leave after the first hit from a man, but what I didn't know was about trauma bonding. After he slapped me, he said, "Look at what you made me do. Now it'll always happen," and I blamed myself. After all, I knew he was a lovely man that I had just spent 9 months having the best time of my life with. I spent the next 9 years chasing the nice man, who showed up in small doses occasionally. Since that first year he has not given me a single penny, and I now have his teenage sons. When our first son was a few months old, he told me on the same day he was going abroad for 2 weeks on holiday. I was devastated, and when 2 weeks passed without his return, I didn't know what to think. He went away for 8 months. At the time I had no clue if he would return, and his enabling mother acted as if it was normal, and I was fussing for nothing. It was a very painful time for me. The morning he returned from abroad, I collected him from the airport. He told me I looked fat, and went to see his friends. I didn't see him until that evening. Weeks later I found a video of him with another woman from when he was abroad. I kissed another man when he was abroad, and he accused me of cheating with this man for years. He convinced me that I had slept with the man, when I was under serious narcissistic fog from his abuse. It was years after we broke up that I realized I had never slept with this man. He became 10 times more abusive after the first year, and I currently have a restraining order on him. What is needed to escape drug addiction is the same approach needed to escape narcissistic abuse. The parts of the brain that make you feel pleasure changes when you are addicted to drugs, or the narcissist. The narcissist, like the drug, becomes more important than anything. The narcissist becomes the reason for your joy and happiness. Since the narcissist is not a drug but a person, explaining this to others is complex. At least with drug addiction the craving and loss of control can be understood, yet the chemical reaction in the brain is the same. Addiction like the narcissist can affect other relationships, jobs, study, and your health. Addiction is not due to weakness, or a lack of willpower, instead it is a chronic disease involving changes in the brain. To control a society, a group of people, or a person, involves creating addictive habits, tolerance for the drug, which in this case is increased tolerance for the narcissist's abusive behavior. Creating patterns of addiction for trauma bonding is easier with more vulnerable people, and why sadistic narcissists seek out children and other vulnerable people. Whether you are no contact with the narcissist, trying to escape them, or if you are in the healing and recovery stage, it is still key to understand the addiction to the narcissist. It is key for overcoming the addiction, and using the same steps as drug addiction to stop. Approaching this like a normal breakup will make you engage with advice that is not applicable to you. Stay clear of oversharing with people that have not experienced narcissistic abuse unless you can communicate it confidently, and even then, be wary. People's advice is likely to feel like you are being gaslighted all over again, and it will upset your nervous system. Until there is more awareness of narcissistic abuse, this is unfortunately the circumstances we face. Hollywood is only interested in showcasing narcissistic abuse that is sensational, and where the narcissist actions are extreme and obvious. Showcasing how subliminal this abuse can be would be very educational, but perhaps not as profit-making. Share your stories with support groups, a therapist, and use the vast amounts of information on this topic for coping and escaping the narcissist, and for healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse. Be very kind to yourself when healing from narcissistic abuse, and do not feel guilty should you return to the narcissist. It is hard, so just try again. It is the people whose abuse led to chronic illnesses, or who have been murdered by the narcissist that will never get to try again. A relationship with a narcissist long-term will make it harder to identify trauma bonds. If you are a child of a narcissist, there is a lot more to work through for healing and recovery. Knowledge is power, and you owe it to yourself to be educated on the topic to help you live your most productive and peaceful life once the veil has been lifted.